Kia ora SYC, it's Dave and it's Wednesday night youth group. This week we're going to do something a little bit differently, and what we're going to do is we're going to hold with the theme the weekend of Easter. Even though Easter finished a couple of days ago, we still want to hold with that because there's a sense that Easter is the most significant event, the most significant weekend in our year, and that it is worth spending a bit of extra time in. A bit of extra time reflecting and seeing what God might want to speak and say to us through it. Some of you guys may have been listening to the Easter camp messages, the Easter camp services that were put up over the weekend. I'd really encourage you, if you didn't get to see those, to head over to the Easter camp Facebook page or the Instagram page and check them out. The services are about an hour long, the videos, but the message part in them is only about 5 minutes in the middle, and I'd encourage you to at least watch that. I really think that as you do that, you can maybe have a sense of encouragement, a sense of what God might be speaking to you, encouraging you in. But today, I really want to focus us in on the story again of the Easter weekend and reflect on it. And the reason I want to do this is because in Easter, we see God most clearly for who God is. It's the event, it's the thing that we bring all the things that we've grown up to believe about God, things we might have been taught by our parents, by our school, by our friends, the sense of all the stuff that we've kind of picked up on our journey. It might be through things that have really gone well in our life, we've come to believe things about God, but it might also be the hurts and the pains that you've suffered. You've come to think about God in a certain way. And in Easter we bring all those beliefs and we offer them up and say, God, do these line up with the God that I see in the Easter story? And as we begin to do that, I think we move from worshipping a God who is a God who we create in our own mind to worshipping the God who truly is. And I really want to encourage you that as you do that, I feel like stuff might start to fall away, stuff might start to fade. There might be questions that arise. Some of those might be a bit troubling, but I'd encourage you to lean into those, because I think in the Easter story we see something of who God is, and it's worth pushing into those questions, those doubts, those feelings, whatever comes up. I think it's worth pushing into that stuff. And what I really want to encourage you to do, whether it's tonight in your care group time or sometime this week, to read through the Easter story. Pick someone, they can get out their phone, they could get out a physical copy of a Bible and get them to read through the story of Easter from start to finish. And it can be in any of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke or John. You might even want to get 2 people to read it, so one person to read it in one gospel, one person to read it in a different gospel, and to reflect on who is the God that I see in this story. And from that, is there anything that I need to shift, need to move in how I see God, and hearing how God works through the story of Easter? I know for me, hearing the story has been transformational year after year after year, and I keep kind of forgetting that. It's really easy to go back to old ways of thinking about God, unhelpful ways of thinking of God, and coming back to Easter again and again every year is really important to continue healing of my soul, of my being, but also of my mind, the sense of I know the God I worship more and more as I come back to Easter again and again. For me, I see in Easter a God who is incredibly self-sacrificial, a God who will go to the most extreme lengths to have relationship with me. And that's not a God that I necessarily have picked up growing up. I know for me, sometimes relationships have seemed a bit hard, whether that's with friends or family. They've been a bit of a struggle, and I think it's easy to put that onto God, that God is a God who is distant, God is a God who is hard to connect with. But in the Easter story I see something of a God who actually isn't like that, a God who goes to all lengths to connect with me, to restore me, to make me whole. And not only that, I think as we started to talk about yesterday, that in doing this he doesn't just call me as an individual, but he creates a family, he creates a people out of this, that there is this group of people who hear the message of, man, this is the God who is. He is worth following. And together he creates a family with all of us. And for me, that's one of the really encouraging things about the Easter story, is that through Easter, God doesn't just restore a relationship between me and him, he helps to restore the relationships I have with others as well. And that's really encouraging. And I think that's what our care groups can be a little glimpse of a group who is on this journey together to figure out the God who we see in the Easter story. That might have challenges, that might have difficulties, that might have doubts, but it is an adventure that is worth going on. And it is an adventure that we don't really have any choice of whether we go it alone or we go with others. God calls us, Jesus calls us to go on that journey together. If you listen to the Easter camp talks, Mike talked about we moved from driving in a van by ourselves to driving in a car by ourselves to jumping in a van with others and going on this journey together, where together we can figure out who is this God, and man, how wonderful is it that we have a God who would go to these lengths as he did in the weekend of Easter. And how significant is it that he rose from the dead, he ascended back to heaven, and then he sent his Spirit to be beside us and empower us, that we are not just healed, but as like Ben shared, we get to go and be part of God's mission to the world, to restore the whole world to himself, to share the story of this is a God who is worth worshipping and worth following. So again, I'd encourage you, whether it's tonight, whether it's this week, I really encourage you to get someone else and to read through the gospel story, particularly around the weekend of Easter, and ask, how does this shape what I think about God, and how might it shape my life moving forward? God bless.